Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Miller Talk podcast. Today is a solo episode, and if you can't notice or you're just listening, I've got the webcam up today. I will be going over some current events and covering one of Trump's executive orders and the Doge dividend. Anyways, let's get to it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Miller Talk podcast. Yesterday, President Donald Trump signed an executive order called Ensuring Accountability for All Agencies. This has spurred quite a conversation on X concerning its constitutionality and its legality, what it actually does, how much power it gives, power it takes away, consolidations of power. But basically, for the most part, this just consolidates the power that the president has. We can kind of read over here. But basically, it says if you are an employee of the president, basically, if you work in any organization that was created by the executive branch, so the ATF and FBI and CIA, things like that, you have to listen to him. You have to do what he says. So that's what this does, because a lot of agencies and stuff have skirted around the law or made up their own interpretations of the law and interpretation of what their duties are as that agency. So if we look here on X, Undead Nor has said Trump signed an executive order today declaring that only POTUS and the AG can define what the law is, which would 100% violate the Constitution. Is he seriously trying to consolidate legislative power to the executive? Some real furor moves from Supreme Chancellor Trump. Well, the thing about that is that's not legislative power that he would be giving himself in this executive order. The Supreme Court is who normally interprets law or defines what the law is. So he would be giving himself supreme power from the Supreme Court, if he was doing anything. And it does not say that only the POTUS and AG can define what the law is. It says he makes the law for the executive branch, and you have to abide by him. He's the boss of the executive branch. Just like the Supreme Court is the boss of the judicial branch, and Congress is the boss of the legislative branch. You didn't read the executive order. It only moves power within the executive branch. Correct. There are agencies that make decisions that could create a conflict of interest if they had direct executive oversight beyond who gets appointed. It's a power grab, moron. Don't think so. Therefore, in order to improve administration of the executive branch and to increase regulatory officials' accountability to the American people, it shall be the policy of the executive branch to ensure presidential supervision and control of the entire executive branch. supervision, and control of the entire executive branch. Moreover, all executive departments and agencies, including so called independent agencies, shall submit for review all proposed and final significant regulatory action to the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs within the Executive Office of the President before publication in the Federal Register. Here it says Trump has signed an executive order saying that only here could decide what the law is. Basically, he is taking a massive hamburger dump on the American Constitution. Let's listen.
Lastly, we have another executive order that President Trump signed relating to independent agencies. This executive order would establish important oversight functions in the Office of Management and Budget and its subsidiary office, OIRA, supervising independent agencies and many of their actions, and also reestablishes the longstanding norm that only the President or the Attorney General can speak for the United States when stating an opinion as to what the law is.
Thank you very much, Will. That was the primary purpose of this conference.
Trump signs an executive order declaring only he in the ag and speak for what the law is. And then this by Chutkin. The U.S. as a state is done for now. The good Americans are fighting it. Support them. Judge declines to block Musk team's foray into federal agencies. Judge Tanya Chutkin declined to grant a request by 14 state attorney generals to temporarily bar Elon Musk and his associates from accessing data at 7 federal agencies and moving forward with their efforts to slash the government workforce. So I guess they're mad that we're digging into the corruption, I guess. Trump just signed executive orders ordering the restoration of freedom of speech, preventing government censorship, pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. This is older. Can speak for what the law is. The Federal Register and the White House website do not yet have a copy of the executive order available to the public. What they do now. That's a pretty bold statement. Trump's reciprocal tariff executive order effectively pulls the United States out of the World Trade Organization in a massive blow to the unelected globalist power. This is 7076 on steroids. Let's see what else is going on. Trump ends New York City congestion pricing plan. That's a pretty good thing. Zelensky engages NATO allies amid Trump's criticism. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has been actively engaging in international diplomacy, discussing security guarantees with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, and preparing for talks with General Keith Kellogg, representative of former President Donald Trump, despite recent remarks from Trump labeling Zelensky as a dictator. He pretty much is. Zelensky has received significant support from European leaders, including UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, signaling a robust international backing for Ukraine. Let's see what he has to
Генерал
say.
Келлог вже в Києві. Він вже зустрічався з главкомом Сирським. Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Сьогодні в Україні були доповіді військових про фронт, про Курську операцію. Наші хлопці тримають позиції. І завдяки цьому зберігаються позиції нашої держави. Сьогодні багато роботи було із новими замовленнями для нашої армії. І це наше внутрішнє виробництво. Ми пропрацьовуємо
wrong, but I think he has. I think Zelensky has just played Trump. I might be wrong, but I think he has. I think he has. I think by going out there and saying that Trump is living in a disinformation space has baited Trump to then come back and react like Trump does with a war of words, accusing Zelensky of being a dictator and saying, frankly, ridiculous things. What does this achieve? It means that the US can absolutely not be a mediator in peace talks because it is being openly hostile with one of the parties. And that means all of Trump's plans in order to portray himself as the big third party who can come in and make a deal, he's blown it himself because he got baited into a war of words and everyone sees that he is actually on one side. And that means that it essentially is going to have to pull in other parties like Europe, like China, the States still, but the dynamics are totally different now. And Zelensky stood up to him and called him out, and Zelensky will also know that Democrats and Republicans alike within the US power structures think that the US should be supporting Ukraine to re-establish its sovereignty. So by baiting Trump out even further means that Trump is going to be in a mess with his own.
I think we forget about this Ukraine war. That just because two sides are fighting doesn't mean we have a good side and a bad side. Both sides can be bad. Not necessarily that one has to be good. The bad guys have won many times in history and had triumphed over a good. But just to say that he's not a dictator, he kind of is. To be honest, he stopped the elections, which I get. It's wartime. That's a pretty common thing to do. But things have settled down, and the people are calling for elections. And he refuses. And so now Trump is calling for him to give elections, and he's not very happy, especially with the way the negotiations are going. Because Trump has gone around him, and he told him not to, which why would Trump care? Trump's going to do what's best and quickest way to get this war ended. That's what he said he was going to do. Sorry. Who do you hate more, Trump or Putin? Really? How the am I supposed to pick? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Don't know why you need to scream. Are you even from America? Wales, United Kingdom. Why do you care so much? You don't even live in America. It doesn't affect you. You don't even live in Ukraine or Russia. You live in the United Kingdom. What else we got here? %20 of Doge. I've heard of this. I saw this. That they're wanting to give the savings back to the people, which I'm okay with if this is like coming from actual money. But if it's like going to be a COVID stimulus check type of thing where we print this money and give it to people, that's not good. That's not good for the economy. It's good for the economy short term. It'll get a lot of people out of some spots, but then after a little bit, we're gonna have to pay for that. We have to pay that back, and it's not gonna be fun. It's gonna create more inflation, which we already are dealing with too much of. So I hope that's not the way it goes. I hope that if they're going to give this money back, that it is actual money, but nothing comes free. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do here. Let's see if we can find out by looking through the Doge dividend. Elon Musk said Doge is considering sending $5,000 refund checks to U.S. taxpayers. This plan would send 79 million households a total of $400 billion, which is 20% of Doge's projected savings by 2026. What does this mean? Let us explain. A thread. They're targeting $2 trillion in total savings. So 20% of that is 400 billion. Is that right? $2 trillion. What is 20% of 2 trillion? 400 billion. Okay. Fact checked. That is correct. So they are saying they can return 400 billion to 79 million US households that will be net payers of federal income tax as a tax refund check called the Doge dividend. 400 billion in Doge driven savings divided by 79 million taxpayers equals $5,000. It's probably a rough estimate, not like the 400 billion. So For some background, it all began when an ex-user posted the below proposal. The plan would redistribute 20% of Doge's projected $2 trillion in savings. So I guess let's read this. President Trump and Elon Musk should announce a Doge dividend and tax refund check sent to every taxpayer, funded exclusively with a portion of the total savings. And Elon Musk says he will check with the president. Only households that are net payers of federal income tax would receive $5,000. So just being honest here, that's not me. I normally get a refund. I've only had to pay into state taxes once, but I pay through income tax, and then when I file my taxes, I always get a refund. So I don't know if this really covers me. I don't know tax code that well. Let's see if they explain more. According to the Tax Policy Center data, around 40.1% of all tax filers in the U.S. are considering non-paying. There are around 132 million households in the U.S. as of 2024. Only around 59.9% of households will receive the Doge dividend check. This is somewhat different than pandemic stimulus. Distribution of tax units that pay no individual income tax. All tax units by expanded cash income percentile. Expanded cash income percentile, number of tax units in the thousands, percent of all tax units, number of non-paying tax units, percent of all non-paying tax units, percent of tax units in class that are non-paying. So I don't know where I'm at in this, but if you know where you're at, you can see. Here's the criteria for the 2020 pandemic stimulus payments per the IRS. Tax filers with adjusted gross income up to $75,000 for individuals and up to $150,000 for married couples filing joint returns receive the full payment. Being a net payer was not a criteria. Tax filers with adjusted gross income. So that just backs up their statement. The Doge dividend proposal argues 4 key benefits: righting the wrong done to the taxpayer, sharing the benefits of cost cutting with taxpayers, boost morale to increase U.S. tax receipts, incentivizing labor force participants in CY 2025. But what about inflation? Okay, so this is the part that I was concerned with. The U.S. handed out nearly $4 trillion of pandemic stimulus. This was objectively inflationary, and we continue to pay the price for it today. So is the Doge dividend any different? It is somewhat different, but we would still expect at least a modest inflationary effect. So if it gives any amount of inflation, I say it's probably not worth it at this point. If we were talking about a pre-pandemic economy and this was happening, let's go for it. But at this point, the way the economy is, with the rate of inflation, it's slowed a lot, obviously, but it's still there. That doesn't mean it just went away. It's not reversing. It ain't in the backup. It's still going forward. So the proposal argues the $5,000 refund would be funded through Doge savings. This is different than the $4 trillion of fiscal stimulus that was funded through deficit spending. It also argues the refund is only sent to tax-paying households who have a higher propensity to save. Doge dividend checks are exclusively funded with Doge-driven savings, unlike COVID stimulus checks, which were deficit financed. Doge dividend checks are sent only to tax-paying householders who have a demonstrated propensity to save, not spend the incremental dollar received. How do they determine that, I wonder? The Doge dividend is different from the past stimulus checks because only tax-paying households received it. Tax-paying households are more likely to save, not spend a transfer payment like the Doge dividend, as consumption is a lower share of their income. Okay. So it sounds like it's going to go to richer people, people who make more. It's probably not going to people who are making like $30,000 or $60,000 a year. It's probably going to people that make probably at least in the hundreds, if not 200, 300,000s. Where, I mean, it almost sounds like to me like they're saying like we're only sending this to people where it's not even going to matter. They don't actually really need it. But if they're the ones that have paid the most taxes, then I guess I get it. Because I know, at least me, I've seen how I've made more money in my life and how much more that gets paid in taxes each year. So I get it. But let's keep reading, see if we can figure out more. While this is true, it doesn't mean it is helping tame inflation. While the refund is not funded through deficit spending, those funds would also not be used to reduce the deficit. So basically, if we give these dividend payments, then they also could be used to pay down the national debt or pay other debts and whatever, which would decrease inflation. So they're saying it could be used for that. That's around $400 billion or 22% of the U.S. deficit that could be used to pay down. Okay, that's what I just said. Sorry. $1 trillion deficits as far as the eye can see. Budget surplus, OMB federal budget protection. Not good. Since Clinton's been in office, it's just woo. That's crazy how there's been more debt added in 2019 and 2022 than there was due to the Iraq war, the wars in the Middle East. Look at that. It's like double. Furthermore, it is unclear if this money would really be saved by these households. 2.1 trillion of excess savings have been wiped out of the U.S. economy since August 2021. Personal savings rates are near the lowest levels on record at 4%. Saving is hard with inflation. I can agree with that. For sure. That's crazy. On the flip side, the proposal would certainly incentivize labor force participation. It would also stimulate the economy and likely increase consumer spending. We have seen signs of weakening spending, such as at restaurants, with growth down to negative 3.9% in July 2024. So people are going out to eat less than they were in 2022. I mean, you can't really count this area because we shut down a bunch of restaurants and everything, but that's about when the country was coming back. So it's way down from there. So far, Doge has saved $55 billion in taxpayer dollars already. Tomorrow is a month that Donald Trump's been in office, and $55 billion already. It's pretty good. This is roughly around $360 per taxpayer through around 1,200 initiatives. It's less than 3% of the 2 trillion goal, but solid progress for the first month. Yeah, that's what I said, and I agree with that. Deficit spending is finally getting the attention it deserves. There's a Doge live tracker. 500 days remaining. It's pretty neat. Here's the last one, the last slide. Whether the $5,000 refund passes or not, it should not distract from the greater goal. Reducing the $1.8 trillion annual deficit is essential. If we eliminate the deficit, we eliminate a ton of our problems. Yep. So my opinion is, after reading this, that we should probably just use that money to pay down the debt instead of giving it to people, even though it's probably deserved. And they probably want their hard-earned money back, and I get that. But we're almost at the point of having runaway debt. So the best thing we need to do is just get that paid down as quick as possible. That will increase the likelihood of everyone's lives going a lot better, quicker, and allowing the economy to rebound quicker. So hopefully allow things to become much more affordable. I thought we were trying to reduce the debt deficit with this project. Turning around and giving away the savings seems the opposite of that. I agree. That's a good statement. The focus needs to remain on reducing or eliminating the U.S. deficit. Agreed. How does adding a $7 trillion tax cut for the rich do that, sir? Reducing the deficit spending, meaning the revenues match or exceed the expense of the U.S. government. The U.S. government will continue to roll revenue. Their focus is to bring down the rolling expenses in real time with the intent of a balanced budget. Seems counterintuitive at face value, but if successful, deficits would cease to exist over time while also strengthening the U.S. taxpayer. If revenues remain reduced through the extension of tax cuts, deficit reduction cannot be achieved. Where is that $7 trillion in cuts coming from? They going to throw millions of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid recipients on the street. Horrible idea. The economy does not need further artificial pushing. Lock in the savings, reduce the deficit, continue. I don't think it's a horrible idea, but I do agree that we don't need any more of this artificial spending like we did in COVID, where a lot of people had a lot of money and were able to buy a lot of stuff, so then the economy looked kind of good because people are spending money, which means the economy's good, but we wasn't really that good. So we need less of that, and we need to reduce the deficit, like Tom Buckley says. It's definitely not the best time to hand out free money. It never is. That's a good response. This would be inflationary, or at least offset any positive that the spending cuts created. Apply the savings to the debt. Agree. And they say agreed. So, yeah, thank you for the post. I'd like that. I don't follow them, but this is a very informative post. Anything else? Unprovoked. Mr. President, Ukraine did not start this war. Russia launched an unprovoked and brutal invasion, claiming hundreds of thousands of lives. The road to peace must be built on the truth. Russia invades Ukraine in the largest European attack since World War II. This is referring to the statement Trump made recently. I wish I had it on hand. Might be able to find it in here. But where he called Zelensky a dictator and said that they should have never involved themselves in the war in the first place. I don't read Fox News articles, so I won't read that, Mr. Mike Pence. I mean, you can just go back and forth. You can say who started it first all day long. Was it the chicken or the egg? But at the end of the day, Russia is the bigger superpower. And they said, don't do this or we're going to attack. And then they did it. And they attacked. Big surprise. But Russia didn't want Ukraine to be a part of NATO. Russia asked if they could be in NATO at one point when Bill Clinton was president. Bill Clinton said, let me go talk to my guys and I'll let you know. And then he came back and he said, no, you will never be in NATO. Why didn't we want Russia in NATO? Just because they're communists? So we're immediately saying, like, we're against you. You can't be in our club. So Russia helped us during World War II. And Russia actually took the brunt of World War II much more than we did. You could imagine if it was from the eastern seaboard of the United States out to about Nashville, Tennessee. That's the amount of land that was destroyed in World War II in Russia. And then we just go around and we just call them our straight up enemy, and everything that they do is wrong and bad. And then we broke up we tore down the wall and broke up the Soviet Union and all its little pieces, and Putin just wants his land back for reasons like obviously resources and just being what he decided is Russia's land. Now, do I think he has the right to invade them and kill innocent people and thousands of soldiers and Ukrainian citizens? No, I don't think he has the right to do that. But they had a chance. I'm sorry. Not the good guy doesn't always win. And we can't save everybody. So it looks to be about it. Putin owns Trump. By abandoning Ukraine, all of a sudden the U.S. is displaying its true self. No ally would trust them now. Okay, we are the biggest military in the world. So I don't care if my allies don't trust me. I don't need them. Unfortunately, sorry. By abandoning Ukraine, all of a sudden, the U.S. is displaying its true self. No ally would trust them now. It's so effing lame. From Trump to talk like a bully, he's single-handedly destroying the image of the U.S., damaging global ties. Really? No, he's not. think the vax has affected you guys too much. Trump is owned by no one. He is the king and the goat. Trump is 100% Putin's B. Trump is getting played by Vladimir Putin and getting nothing in return by betraying our ally Ukraine. I wonder what this is referring. This post draws a parallel between the 1939 partition of Poland by Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union and a hypothetical 2025 partition of Ukraine involving Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, suggesting Trump is complicit in enabling Russian aggression similar to historical appeasement. It references the historical partition of Poland, where Poland was divided among foreign powers, leading to its disappearance as a sovereign state for over a century, as documented in Wikipedia's entry on the subject. Recent news like Trump's comments blaming Ukraine for the ongoing war and calling for elections, as reported by Politico on February 19, 2025, fuels the Post's accusation of Trump aligning with Putin's interest, hiding tensions with European leaders. I'm sure Putin isn't going to get everything he wants in these negotiations. Ukraine isn't going to get everything they want in these negotiations. We're not going to get everything we want in these negotiations. But we're going to end the war in the needless, selfless killing of human lives. Human souls are being lost all over territorial disagreements. So let's figure it out. Interesting stuff. In response to the recent wildfires in Los Angeles County, California Governor Gavin Newsom has proposed a $125 million mortgage relief program for homeowners affected by natural disasters since 2023. This initiative aims to prevent foreclosures for those impacted. Meanwhile, Los Angeles County has taken steps toward a 6-month rent moratorium and established 4 recovery centers providing comprehensive support for employment, housing, and financial assistance to residents and workers. Interesting. Oh, wow. Look at that. That's One heck of a water main break. Wow. Wonder if those cars are okay or if they're all going to start back up after that. It's interesting. What happened to this guy? Well, I think that's where I'm going to call it for today. If you listened or watched this far, thank you. And we're going to continue to try to do these. Hopefully have more guests on. I'm trying to find people that I talk to on X. If anyone I find interesting, has an interesting take on current events or anything, we'll ask them if they want to come on. And we'll have a discussion. And if not, I'll try to do more of these solo ones where I can talk about current events like today, my take on them and what I think. Or we can review some of my other my writings that I made. So thank you all for tuning in, and until next time, I'll see you. Bye. Well, if you made it this far, thank you, and I hope you learned something with me today. I'm still a little confused on who is supposed to get the Doge dividend, but at least I've learned how it worked today. And at least we've learned more about Trump's latest executive order. A lot of people seem to have been lying about that online and making stuff up and drawing their own conclusions based off of nothing. Saying it gave him more power and all this other stuff when it really just consolidated power. But thank you for listening today. And if you liked it, leave a like and maybe think about subscribing. And thank you guys.